Well, hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we are live on a Friday lunchtime, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with feelings. And boy, did I have a lot of feelings this week, as you will hear. I'd like to extend a really warm welcome to everybody who's either watching directly on the broadcast and participating on it. We love that. And also all those of you who prefer to stay in the background and just chill out while it's all going on. We totally understand that and love it as well. So welcome to everybody. Just for those of you who don't know, DearMamaSal is a group of people who get together 3 times a week in order to help us cope generally. On Friday lunchtime, we talk about coping with our feelings, which we all have. On Friday evening at 7 o'clock Pacific, we talk about coping with life. And then on Sunday afternoon at 3:30 Pacific, we talk about coping with stress. And we do that sort of every single week. And we are here to support one another, which to us is the most important thing we can do. To have a support group of people is important to everybody. And here at DearMamaSal, we take that role pretty darn seriously. And so for those of you who are new, welcome. And for those of you who are wondering what's going on here, well, let me tell you a little bit about it. First of all, say hi to Jody, our admin. Thank you, Jody, for always looking after me the way that you do, and also all our viewers. I'd also like to say hi to Jeannie. And Jeannie, I'm glad you like the thumbnail. I have a viewer who prefers to remain anonymous, who every now and then sends me new thumbnails that she's been playing with. And it apparently gives her great joy. And I am very grateful to her for those generic thumbnails that she sends. And Sandy, great to see you, and congratulations. You've done a really good job of being accountable for your health this week. For those of you who don't know, we have a separate DearMamaSal fitness group where we concentrate on the fitness of not only our bodies, but also our minds. And I'm a great believer, if you don't spend the time on something, it's not going to change. And therefore, that fitness group is about, are you prepared to be accountable for things? And Sandy, welcome back to being accountable. And I hope you're already beginning to see the difference in you. The topic for today, as some of you already know, is coping with feelings of frustration, fear. Being unfairly treated is in the mix today, and how to deal with it. And then I'm hoping that we'll have a little bit of time to be able to discuss the Meghan and Harry interview, because I'm certain that brought up a lot of feelings for a lot of people. And I thought that we would have a look at seeing both sides of that story and see, are we flexible enough to be able to do that? And I'm pretty sure we are. It is still International Women's Month, I believe. And I love that quote that I saw. I think Erin put it up, if I'm correct, to say that a strong woman doesn't compete with others. She tries to help, even when fighting her own personal demons. And I know we all know people within the DearMamaSal group who are witness to that, who, regardless of what's going on in their lives, still make the time to care for other people, part of the DearMamaSal family. And thank you all for doing that. By the way, I'd just like to put in a couple of notes here. For those of you who don't know, I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist, anything like that with a fancy bit of paper. DearMamaSal, I am a person who, as you can tell by my hair color, has lived quite a few years. And the information that I share are my opinions, and my opinions as somebody who's lived that many years, and so that you know that. For those of you who might have a problem that you'd like to discuss with me personally, that is available, please contact me at dearmamasalgmail.com. And by the way, if you know anybody who's prepping for an important interview, I've always said to my friends and associates, You know, getting the interview is only half your problem. Getting past the interview is the other half. And, you know, it takes some really interesting skill sets to get through an interview. And I guess some of you do know this, but I actually specialize in that. So make sure that you know and that your friends know. So DearMamaSal is an extended family, a group of people who care and who grow together emotionally. And I'm pretty certain everybody in the broadcast today will tell you that bit by bit, every week, they just grow a little bit more emotionally. And we've had some great success stories, and I am just so aware that it has very little to do with me, but an awful lot to do with us as a group. And my job is just to bring up the subjects and get people talking. And then, you know, from there, we all grow. Just a reminder to everybody, Sunday will be clocks forward. You're going to lose an hour of sleep, unless, of course, you're in the southern hemisphere, like Lauren and a couple of others, and they will actually be moving their clocks back and getting an extra hour of sleep. So, but for those of us in the northern hemisphere, clocks will be going back on Sunday. So just, you know, be prepared, not scared of that one. Yeah, Sandy's saying that she's happy to be back in the swing of things. Well, you know, it's amazing how when you, by the way, Sandy, you know, we all know that thing where we've got all the excuses in the world why we shouldn't be doing it. You know, I totally get that. So the fact that you made a conscious decision to get back into doing it, good on you. It says, you know, if you ended up in a court of law and they said, can you prove that you cared about your health? You'd be able to say, oh yeah, I report on it every morning. You know, that I am aware of what, you know, how many steps I've done. I'm aware of my resting heart rate. I am aware. And you could prove it. Why? You got a documentation of it. So let's get underway here. And I want you to start under the topic of how many of you get bent out of shape every now and then when life doesn't quite go the way that you had planned it. And if any of you relate to that, then hear my story here. And actually, I need to get my, I hate it when I do that. All right, hang on a second, people. I'll be right back. I especially got pictures for you, but they're on my tablet. Hold on. And just while I'm doing this, I'd like you to see how high this leek has grown. Don't know if you remember, but last week it was about this high. And look at how much it's grown this week. Absolutely amazing. Okay, so let's just do this. To let you know what happened, I had a perfect day planned yesterday, all planned out nicely. And what happened was I went to, go to my first, what shall I say, plan. And I was going down a pretty countryside sort of road, and there was quite a traffic jam, and I couldn't understand why until I got closer to it. And I'm hoping that you can see this. Can you see that that is a semi pulling like an office building, and it tried to reverse across a small bridge into that property. And I don't know if you can see that it slipped. Isn't that amazing me? So, you know, the interesting thing was, what am I going to do now? Now, the front end of this the semi, the tractor part of it, was about 3/4 of the way across the road. Now, what you need to understand, because it is important, is that Hang on a second. I've got to show you this. There was probably enough room that barely to get a car in front of it, because if you can imagine, this is the road and here is that tractor trailer falling into that part of the ditch. And oh, wait a minute. And then this is the cab bit. This is the cab of it. Yeah. There's probably was just about enough space to get a car through there. However, this was a ditch, and I don't mean a little one. I mean a sheer drop, probably, I would think 3-4 feet of ditch down. And I looked at that scenario, and I don't know about you guys, but this was like, I don't, even though I've got a Jeep, I don't fancy accidentally dropping a wheel that side of the ditch and ending up looking like this. What about you guys? Right, so while I'm waiting for you to reply to that, let me just read what Jeannie's saying here. Jeannie's saying, I nearly had a meltdown recently because everybody wanted me to do a dozen things I had trouble doing. I spent over half an hour on the phone with the electrical company. Then the electrician wanted me to fill out a form, and then I had to talk to the inspector. Finally, I told my husband that I needed to rest for half an hour and not to be bothered. I'd had enough. The next day, I was fine again. Too much on my shoulders. Totally understand it, and you're going to hear what's been happening to me, Jeannie. And I know you will totally relate to this, because for those of you who don't know, Jeannie also had a house fire, as did I, back in September. But Jeannie had a house fire that totally devastated her home. I mean, they had to gut it down to the basement. And so Jeannie's also in the process of rebuilding. And I am actually ahead, because only 1/3 of my house was affected. And I am due to move back in again in the next 2 weeks. So that's why I've got a lot on my plate at the moment. So as you can see from the way that semi was, I had to make a decision. Do I want to try and get around the front of it, or do I want to do the, 3-point turn and get out of Dodge? And, I don't know about you, but, a 3-point turn on a narrow country road, as you can probably see, let me just show you again. Picture, so there we go. As you can probably see, it wasn't a wide road, right? It was only a 2-lane road. And yeah, I've got a dirty great Jeep. So, but I managed it. I decided to get out of Dodge. Why would I risk? I've got enough going on. Why would I risk possibly falling down a ditch? And to me, it was really important to understand that, yes, that's going to mess up my day. And by the way, to make that shift probably took me out of my way by about another 5 minutes or so. But, when you think about it in the big scheme of things, 5 minutes is not the end of the world, right? Oh, that's good to hear. Jeannie's saying that they're now expecting to move back in June. This is awesome to hear. Sorry, I've got an allergy attack going on for the moment. So that was, can you imagine how my feelings changed when 1 minute I was totally on track and now I've had this glitch? Life got in the way right there. So how many of you can understand that would have an effect on me? Well, this wasn't the start of my day. My day had started with even more difficulty. And I want to just let you know about that part. But before I do, I want to make sure we remember when life gets in your way like this, remember what we do, all right? Number one, remember to go with the flow, all right? It is what it is. Therefore, don't get angry at it. It just is what it is. Nobody left a base point that day with a semi-trailer with that great building on the end of it and said, I think I'm going to mess up Sal's day today. I don't think that's what they wanted to do. I think it was an accident that they accidentally tipped it over the side of that little bridge. And I am pretty certain it took them hours to get that semi-trailer out of the road. So to me, I need you to remember that sometimes we just need to go with the flow and deal with reality. And so to me, we are aware that things change. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, it's Sharon's birthday today. She happens to pop in on a broadcast either today, later, either during this broadcast or the one later. Let's make sure we wish her a happy birthday. So the question that I have is, are you constantly pushing yourself to be more flexible about your feelings? In other words, sure, like anybody else, my instant reaction was, oh, short words, that's all that I need. And then I correct myself and I go, no, that's fine. It's probably going to put about another 5 minutes out of my way, but that's all. Now let me get on with doing that 3-point turn with 65 cars watching me do it. And by the way, doing a 3-point turn on that road with those drop-offs either side, bit scary when you've got what have I got, a 16, I think my Jeep is about 16 feet long. And when you think about it, when you've got it sideways across a road, that doesn't give you a lot of maneuvering room, to do a 3-point type turn. But I did. I was very proud of myself. So practicing flexibility is always important. And let me just give you an example of that before I get on to the next thing that happened. This is a container, all right, that I get my weekly supply of raspberries in. All right, you've all seen them. Quite a simple container. There we go. Just like that. So what I'd like you to do is to tell me, other than being a container for raspberries, what else could we use it for? Right, this is an exercise, and I want to do them every week, of making sure that you don't get stuck on it looks like a raspberry container, therefore that's all that it is. Not true. It is not all that it is. So anybody got any ideas on this one? What else would you use it for? Yep. I've just split the top on it here. It's got holes in it. Let's see if anybody can come up with any other uses for it. Just see what you can do. And while you're giving me your views, let me tell you that I love creating things around what things should be and shouldn't be. Yes, Jody, because Jody knows that's what I do. I use a container like this to put my, not the store-bought popcorn, but when you just buy the kernels yourself and do them. I put popcorn into things like this, and then I put the lid on it, and I cut a slightly bigger hole in one corner, and then I just shake it, and then all the unpopped kernels will drop out. So that's definitely one thing. I was thinking you could use it as a strainer. If you were making soups and you had a lot of vegetables in there, but you basically just wanted the broth, you could, use it as a strainer. You could use it to wash things other than raspberries, right? You could put other fruits in here and then just wash them. I, of course, being somebody that likes to grow things, how many of you can see that it also would make a very nice little seedling starter, you know, because you could put it into another container that had water and there's plenty of room for the water to get in there. And then once the seedlings grew, you could take the top off and there you would have your seedlings. So think about that. Now, I want to show you what I actually did with it, because pictures worth 1,000 words, of course. I used mine to keep my lipsticks and my mascara in. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is all about recycle and reuse, obviously. And I'm about to go back to a house and all my drawer organizers are gone. All right, they were all destroyed after the fire. But what I also wanted to show you is get creative on, a second, on things like, and I wanted to show you this, how do you feel about the fact that I reuse my Kleenex boxes in my drawers? Right? Very simple to do, right? And I some of them I take the top off and some I don't, but they make perfect containers inside a drawer. And I just wanted to show you that this is all about, now, if I were Jody, I'd probably have them all painted the same color or wrapped in paper and, you know, all matching. But I don't have time for that right now. So that is that is just like what I'm doing to make do at the moment. The reason I ask you to rethink these things is because, do you see that just by asking you that question, your brain was stretched a little bit, right? You had to get outside your norm to think, what else could I use this for? And the more you stretch your thinking, the better. The better for your health, better for your mental health, better for your ability to cope with your feelings, all those sort of things. And the same thing as I've said to you about muscles, all right? When you stretch your muscles, they probably hurt a little bit when you first do it. They're not used to stretching. But, you know, the more that you stretch them, the easier it becomes for them. But also remember, as with muscles, that if you don't use your muscles, they atrophy, they stop growing and being strong, they just wither and die. And make sure that you keep doing things to help you keep your brain intact and to keep you critically thinking about things and always looking for options instead of getting stuck in the road on things. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is being treated unfairly. And I'm pretty certain you all have moments in your life where you think you're being treated unfairly. And so I thought I'd tell you a story about where that happened to me this week and then what I did about it. Now, do we agree that being treated unfairly is not a fact? It is actually a subjective thing, all right? It's like, my idea of unfairly and yours might not agree. Do we all agree on that? And so always bear that in mind when you talk about being treated unfairly. Make sure you keep it, I felt that it was unfair, not that it was unfair, because that's it's a subjective thing. But it felt unfair. And remember, feelings, whenever we talk about our feelings, it's on us. All right. So here's what happened to me. I have started to go shopping to get the basic things I will need to go home. If you remember, they destroyed most of everything out of my bathroom, most of the stuff out of my bedroom. And so now I needed to restart rebuying the essentials for my bed. The actual frame, I think, made it. But I will need to do that. I will need to rebuy a mattress. I will need to rebuy all the bedding, all the pillows, all the, the comforters, all those sort of things that go on a bed. And then everything in the bathroom. So if you think about it, all the drawer organizers, all the little organizers. Oh, and I lost a cupboard because in rebuilding the bathroom, I've changed the shape of the bathroom. And in doing that, I've lost a very nice and very useful cupboard in my bathroom. But I'm going to gain a wall-to-wall shower, which is what I wanted. And I will show you pictures of that tonight. So here is the reality. I did the first load of shopping where I got the bedding and the mattress cover, the pillow, protectors, all those sort of, a couple of pillows. Didn't get, the 6 pillows that were there. I just got 2 and a small contrast one. Anyway, so I got a lot of stuff. And I piled it all into the trunk of my Jeep. And it was, it leveled out the back of the Jeep quite well. And I got it home, and then I wrote to, being thoughtful, I thought, I wrote to the restoration people and I said, okay, I've started to buy the stuff that I need to go back home. And I just wanted to know, where would you like me to put it? In other words, would the guest's bedroom be the best place to put it at this moment? And the answer I got was, why don't you put it in the suite where you're living at the moment? This one, this temporary suite that I'm living in, nice as it is. But I don't know what happened. Something went off in my brain and I just went, huh? Because, and this is what you need to think about, the reason I reacted was it sounded so simple, right? Okay. And it isn't. First of all, I'm in an apartment building and I'm in an underground parking where the elevator is here and I am all the way over here. That's where my car is parked, on the farthest wall away from that elevator. And that meant that trip by trip, it wasn't possible to do it in one load. I would have to walk everything all the way to the elevator area. Now, the elevator area is secure. So you have to actually activate a door here to get into the elevator lobby. And then do I go all the way back and get the second lot and bring it in and keep doing that and then pile everything into the elevator? And then, by the way, when you go up 4 floors, which is where I am, then get out of the elevator and walk to my apartment. Load by load by load. How many of you can feel my reaction to that? I see that Sandy already did. Now, my attitude was, really? And I think some of you who are regular viewers know me well enough to know that I have the ability to be quite snippy when you mess with my brain too much. I'm pretty good most of the time, but you mess with me too much, I get a little bit bent out of shape because I'm human. And so the one thing we all know, do we agree, don't ever react out of emotion. So therefore, don't immediately react. Give yourself a bit of time to calm down before you react. And I try to think, what am I going to do here? And what I did was I wrote an email And in the email, I said, thank you for your reply, right? I wanted to start by being polite. And then I asked a question. Because what I've discovered is when you ask somebody a question where they have to think, it sort of changes the perspective slightly. And I said, let me see, can I ask you a question? And my question is, would you ask your mother to do, about 4 trips from her car, which is presently parked at the farthest possible place away from the elevator area, and at her age, presuming that she is 73, that you would ask her to walk the loads of shopping, load by load, to the elevator area, unlock the elevator lobby door, and then throw some stuff in there, and then go back and get the second load, the third, and I would think probably 4 or 5 loads, and pile them all up in the elevator area. And then would you suggest that she do that, one trip all the way into the elevator, up 4 floors, and then walk the first load to her apartment, and then go back for the second? Which would you recommend she do? Or may I ask, would you even want her doing it? Do you understand? I didn't say you are a raving bozo. So the interesting thing was that I got an immediate reply, which was, take it to your house. And I wrote back and said, oh, thank you so much. And he did say, I'm sorry, I had no idea it was that difficult. But what I did was I said, thank you so much for that consideration. I will put it in big bags so that the things are easy to move if you should need to, if anybody should need to. And by the way, when I took it there yesterday, I put it all in big bags, and I put those big bags into closets. So only if they were repainting the closets again in those areas would they need to take them out. And they're all in big bags that you can easily just pick up and move it. Yes, and Jeannie's saying that she found that she's got some room in her garage, right? Now, obviously, I didn't have that availability for where I am. So what I wanted you to see, though, was, can you see I didn't get rude? I just asked the question. And the question, made the other person think. It made them see things from my perspective, not from theirs. And, and as I said, I didn't tell them they were a raving idiot, even if I thought it at the time, And, by the time, I'm pretty certain by the time they finished reading my question, they got that message. I can tell you that this works really well. It's a way that I've dealt with when I'm feeling angry about things. I've learned to do this, and I've even learned to do it in reverse. I had a client once, and what I found out was that one of the reps that worked in the company had actually lied to him and told him he could have something that was impossible to give a client. It was impossible. And when I say impossible, for those of you who understand printing, there are certain pages in a magazine that will always be black and white, depending on the makeup of the magazine, and certain pages that will carry color. And obviously, if it's the first 2 pages at the front, the first 2 pages at the last 2 pages at the back will also be carrying color. But you have quite a lot of pages in between that are just black and white. That makes sense? And so what she had promised him was color on a page that didn't carry color. And so now this was insane, and it was a lie. And I don't do lies very well. However, what I did was I phoned him. And I asked him, remember, it's the same principle, because I was about to tell him that something he thought he had bought was not possible to do. All right. So I phoned him and I said, you know about that ad that you bought, and this is where you wanted it. And he said, yep. And I said, well, I just have to tell you that it's actually physically impossible to do that. And the rep should have known that, and quite honestly does know that, and she lied. And so I said, let me ask you a question. All right, before I knew that his blood pressure was probably rising pretty well. And I said, let me, just before we go on, can I ask you a question? And he said, what's that? And I said, if you had a rep in your company that lied to a client, what would you do about it? Now, do you understand that the moment I asked him to think, it changes his mentality? Do you all understand that? He can't carry on feeling angry. What he needs to do is to rethink, all right, because I've asked him a question that requires thought. And, the interesting thing was he immediately said to me, I would fire them. And I said, oh, that's interesting to hear. So you understand why I am phoning you right now and not the rep who no longer works here. And, he just started to laugh and said, yep, I understand that perfectly. And I said, good. So I thought I'd just have a little conversation with you about what I'm going to give you as an apology. All right. And then I went on to not what he was losing, but what he was about to gain from the error that had been made. And can you see that just by handling it that way, it kept his feelings under control? Did he have every right to feel angry about being lied to? Yeah, as same as I had every right to feel angry about a rep that worked in the company I was responsible for lying to a client. I had every reason to feel angry, but feeling angry doesn't fix anything, right? Feeling angry doesn't fix anything. That you need to, and if ever you can, just realize that so much of the stress you give yourself is about your feelings. And when you can control your feelings better, you are going to feel a lot happier. Now, how many of you now want to start seeing things that I have bought for my house? And the reason I say that is because I want to change the feeling. And you can understand that that was a pretty nasty moment for me in terms of, what do you mean I've got to lug it? And by the way, I was not going to lug it all back out of my Jeep and upstairs. What I decided to do was leave it in the Jeep. And yeah, there was a possibility somebody could break into the Jeep, but quite honestly, my Jeep has tinted windows at the back, and you'd have to, be Spider-Man to get in front of the Jeep to look into it and see what was in the back. So I decided I'm just going to leave everything in the Jeep until I take it home. Just so you know, that was my decision. You see, it is my decision. And by the way, if they had got nasty with me, I would have reminded them that is my home. And I'm sorry if it's inconvenient, but either buy me a storage locker for a week and then arrange to have people collect things out of there, or let me take some stuff home. So what I thought I'd show you is that it's a trick that I have been practicing for most of my adult life. I love white face cloths. How about you? And the reason I love them is because I recycle them. When I say recycle, I will buy a set of face cloths, and then the first year or two, depending on how white they remain, I will use them in my bathroom for my face. When they start to get a bit grungy, I will take them to the kitchen and use them as paper towels. Are you with me so far? This is my tip for the day, by the way. And use them for paper towels, right? I have, in my kitchen, I will have a stack of these, and instead of using a paper towel, I will use a face cloth, which is now a kitchen cloth. By the way, it hasn't finished its work. When this starts to get pretty stained, it goes into the utility room and becomes, a floor cloth, or, take it out to clean the car cloth or anything like that. Makes sense. By the way, this particular, I can tell by its design. I buy different designs each year, so I've got an idea of how old a face cloth is. This face cloth is probably over 5 years old, by the fact it doesn't have any design on it. That year I bought face cloths without any design, but you can see it's still pretty white. So it's actually still in that phase of being a kitchen cloth rather than, actually this one is still being a bathroom cloth at the moment. However, these are the new ones I got, and I thought that was a really nice, I don't know if you can see that, it's got like a shiny white pearlized design in it. And then I got the matching hand towels for that. I don't get bath towels because I always use a robe. I have to check there. I can't remember seeing whether the robe got destroyed or not. But when I get out of the shower, I don't use a towel. I just walk straight into a robe. And I have done that for years. It's, it just saves so much in washing. And think about it. I walk around in the robe for a little while, and by the time I've gone and got what clothes I want to get, the robe has absorbed the moisture, and I hang it up to dry, and that's it. It's done. And then once a week, I will throw it in the wash. So I find that it saves a lot of, washing of towels and everything else, as well as a robe. So there you go. However, it's been a week, people. I got lots of stories for you. How many of you remember last year, under the title of Be Prepared, Not Scared, I saved up the money and bought myself a big freezer so that I could buy meat while the prices were good and before all the prices went up. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. So I went to the house yesterday, and what I saw was an empty freezer. Can you believe it? So you look at it and you go, that freezer it's a big one. It's a 15 cube freezer, and it was 3/4 full with roasts of meat, of vegetables. The whole of the left-hand side was all vegetables, frozen vegetables. The next area was all frozen fruit. And then there was this whole area of stacked roasts. And then there was the fourth area was, things that I'd already cooked. So that after carefully making sure that they gave me power to that freezer from the get-go, it managed to make it all the way through the winter, while we were waiting for the permits and everything else. And they were, here we are, literally 2 weeks away from my returning home to the freezer, and somebody must have unplugged the freezer. How would you feel about that? And that's what I want you to, that's what I want you to be honest about. How would you feel if you, like me, walked into your home yesterday and you saw that the freezer was empty? And you'd been saying, I wonder what I'm going to do about it. You see, you've got to be careful what you think about. Because I've been saying to myself, I wonder how much of this stuff I'm going to need to throw away because I won't have room for it. You know, the stuff I got in this freezer, because I won't have room for it in the freezer when I go back. Well, guess what? Got plenty of room for it now. I don't have to worry. But do you understand that feeling angry about some bozo forgetting to leave the fridge plugged in is not going to change anything? And quite honestly, when I saw it empty, I smiled. And I don't mind telling you that part of me felt sorry for the person who had unplugged it. Because I can imagine that that person was probably feeling a little bit embarrassed, to say nothing. Jodie's saying that she's speechless, but that doesn't happen very often. Sandy's saying she felt angry. And, you know, Jeannie's saying sad and angry. But do you all agree that doesn't get my freezer filled up again, right? So now what I decided was, is there an upside to this? Can I change my feeling from what the happened to, okay, can I turn this into a good thing? Now, you and I both know that when they realized that it had been left unplugged, and obviously the smell probably told them that, they then had to empty it. So they know how full it was. You know, there's no doubt that they know it was 3/4 full. So can you see there is an upside? They're going to have to give me the money to replace everything that was in that freezer. And I don't think that they can depreciate the value of that. Plus, they also are going to have, I'm going to have to put new food in there. So there is the upside that everything that's about to go into my freezer when I get it restocked is going to be, dated now. It won't be 5 months old, which the other stuff would have been. So I've decided that I'm going to concentrate on that feeling of, wow, look at that. I'm going to have new stuff in there. And one of the things that I want you, in terms of dealing with your feelings, is if you can trust the process that somewhere in here, there is a good thing happening. Yes, and Jodie's saying they also defrosted it for you. Yeah, and cleaned it beautifully. It was perfectly clean. And I also am pretty sure they were thankful for the fact that, you remember I told you that I keep everything in a deep freezer like this? That I keep everything in Safeway bags. So if I want a roast of meat, I just pull out, one of the 2 or 3 bags that have roasts of meat in them. So they didn't have to grovel at the bottom with, melted, meat juices or anything, because it was all contained within plastic bags. And that is why I do it. All right? Because then the bottom of your freezer does not get gungy. Anyway, the freezer, as you could see, is perfectly clean, and they've obviously cleaned it all out and got it ready to be started again. All right, and so Jeannie's saying that's a lot of money down the drain. Yes, but it's not my money, it's theirs. All right, and they will have to pay for it. That is over and above whatever other costs are involved. They're going to have to sort that one out for me. Yeah, and absolutely, Jeannie, I agree. No depreciation on the value of that, that's for sure. It's called, in fact, quite the opposite. They're going to have to pay today's prices, not the prices that I filled it with. Because you remember, I kept buying stuff that was on sale. So, I'd see a rack of spare ribs on sale. I would buy a couple. I saw a pork tenderloin on sale. I would buy a couple. I saw, roasts of beef on sale. I would buy one, because I'd buy a big one and then I'd chop it up into a couple. And so, I'm not going to, they will handle that. I'm not getting upset. I haven't even mentioned it. All right. They know it's happened. So when it's on my list of things to discuss with them. Now then, these two things that you've heard happened to me after the first one. And this is how I started the day. This is on Wednesday. So I want you to understand this has all been stress upon stress upon stress, right? So on Wednesday, and the first Wednesday of the okay, just before I carry on with that, Kimmy's saying, when my fridge went bad, I had to throw a lot of food out. I was upset. My question is, does getting upset fill up the fridge? No. So the fastest thing, the best thing you can do for your mental health is when you come across something like that, is you just need to look at it and go, for a split second, and then say, it is what it is. Getting upset about it is not going to help. Therefore, I'm going to do the best I can to replace things in there. And let me find an upside to this, right? At least it's forcing me to clean out my fridge. There's always an upside if you really want to find one. And then just start again. Life just isn't fair all of the time. And I know that we can't all afford to replace everything. Yes, there was nothing you could do, Kim, except, start again. And I'm sure that that's what you did. And, I'm pretty certain you didn't have it in your budget to buy a new fridge, but you had to. And you see, that's life. Life does that. And feeling upset about life, is like fighting City Hall, right? It's a waste of time. So let me carry on to what happened to me on Wednesday. Now, Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month, is normally fire testing, the fire alarm testing thing. And I was a bit confused because they didn't do it on the first Wednesday. And so guess what? They did it this Wednesday. Never mind, that's fine. And sure enough, the alarm, because what they do is they actually set the alarms off for a split second, and then they'll leave it for a little while, and then they'll set the alarms off again for a split second while they push another button somewhere, and then they turn it off, and that's it. Yeah, that's fine. So that's what happened on Wednesday. Their first alarm went off, and I went, what's that? And then I went, oh, it's Wednesday, beginning of the month. Okay, fine. I know what it is. And then a split second later, 10 minutes later, alarm goes off again. Now, you all know I'm a little bit sensitive to fire alarms, with my, with my experience of a house fire. And so, but, I've learned to go, is it Wednesday? That's the first thing. And I hear a fire alarm now, I go, is it Wednesday? Yes, that's fine. So then I relax and I start putting together, things for the broadcast and stuff, which I do first thing in the mornings. And I'm busy doing that with my coffee, and suddenly the fire alarm goes off. And I don't mean an off, I mean, and it keeps going. And I'm going, how many of you can imagine what I was feeling? This, quite honestly, when I realized that is not on and off, that is constant, my first feeling was one of fear. I don't mind telling you that, because of my experience of how dangerous that can be. And I don't have a fire extinguisher here, which I did at home. So, in fact, I had two at home. Jody, could you just do me a favor, please, honey? Could you write down fire extinguishers for me? Because I realize I need to replace those. And I need to remember to do that before I go back. Anyway, so I'm hearing this constant alarm, and I go, it's like the cycle of loss. First thing, denial. I can't believe I'm hearing that. And then the second one was, was anger. I can't believe I'm hearing that. Not again. Can you imagine that? Not again. And then I went, okay, stop reacting and start acting, because you need to get out of here. So I ran and grabbed my phone, my tablet, my passport. I didn't take my computer with me this time. And the reason was because I was pretty sure this was about a glitch in whatever they had done, in the testing earlier. But do you think I had that little scenario plugged into my plan for the day? No. And the next thing is I get out in the hallway here, and there a couple of my neighbors are coming out of their apartments. And the one guy says to me, "Do you think this is serious?" I said, "Sir, it's a fire alarm. And the whole reason I am here and have been here for 5 months is because there was a fire in my house. So believe you me, when a fire alarm goes off, I would take it seriously until you find out you don't have to anymore." But I said, your life, your choice. And with that, I just locked my apartment door, and I went to the stairs, obviously not the elevator. I went to the stairs and I walked down 4 flights of stairs, and got out. So the trick here is to feel the feelings, but do something, all right? Staying in feelings can get you in a lot of trouble. You need to, there was part of me going, for those of you who know that expression, deja vu, here we go again. I've been here before. I know this sound. So can you imagine how much stress all of that was? And by the way, is there any point in getting upset about how it totally disrupted my day? I was very grateful when I got outside that it was a sunny day here in British Columbia, not peeing with rain or snowing or something. It was just a beautiful spring day. So I was very grateful. And I stood there for a while and, sort of chit-chatted with a couple of my neighbors until I thought, wait a minute, what would I normally be doing now? And I thought I would normally be walking. And what I decided was, why don't I just walk while I wait? By the way, 2 alarm, they brought 2 fire trucks in, which is what they brought to my house. And I sort of just could rethink that whole picture of what had happened to me back in September. And I said, the best thing I can do is occupy my mind. I'm going to walk. And so what I did is I just walked around and around for as long as it took. It probably took them about an hour to clear that everything was safe for us to go back. But again, can you see that getting stressed out about a fire alarm isn't going to change the reason why the fire alarm went off? Feeling frightened is not going to help you. What helps you is being proactive. What can I do? How many times do you hear me say that? Don't get frustrated about what you can't do. Think about what can you do. And when I thought about it, what can you do? I can grab my phone, my tablet, my purse, my passport, and I can get out of here. And so to me, I am hoping that these stories, this is all in 2 days, by the way, just so you know that. And so I'm hoping that these stories tell you that the way that we deal with our feelings determines what sort of day you're going to have. All right. Any comments on that? Anything that you'd like to ask? Anything that you'd like to add to that? Anything that you'd like to talk about today? I want to get on to the interview that some of us saw with Prince Harry. Well, yeah, actually Harry now, and Duchess Meghan of Sussex. I want to talk about that because I am pretty sure that created a lot of feelings for people. All right, so Kimmy's saying, stay calm in every situation. I also do believe, Kimmy, that it's okay to have a moment of panic, right? That's human nature. Don't stay there, right? Remember when I had the fire in my house, a moment of what the heck's going on, and then get into action, all right? Do whatever you can, all right? And that is what I'm hoping you will get from this, that in each of these situations, I can sit in my car and be angry because there's a semi across the road, or I can go, oh, I hope nobody got hurt. And by the way, that building that they're trying to deliver there, that doesn't look too hot at the moment. The roof of part of it looks like it, and I felt sorry for the guy that had done it. And it was just like, it must have been difficult enough to get it as straight as he did, but then that one wheel dropped, and that was the end of that story. So, to me, it is how quickly can you get back into reality? That is what I'm telling you. Staying in your feelings, all right, good or bad, staying in your feelings is just going to keep you on the hamster wheel. Get off that hamster wheel and get on with dealing with it. That is the trick. So if nobody's got anything that they particularly want to talk about at the moment, I wanted to talk a little bit about that interview. How many of you saw the interview with Harry and Meghan? Yeah, Jeannie's saying people seem to be pushing at you and at her, right? And she's saying at me and at Jeannie. But we have to just breathe deeply and trust ourselves. Yes, I always must say that I go, that's what you want me to do, but is it what I want to do? And the answer was absolutely not. And then I think, okay, how can I first of all, let me calm down before I answer, because otherwise I will be really snippy. And by the way, at the end of that thing, when I asked him, would you ask your mum to do this? At the very end, I did say to him, I probably sound a little bit snippy today. And that would be because we had a 2-alarm fire here in the building this morning. And so I'm a little bit sensitive. I'm sure you can understand. All right, so Kimmy's saying she saw part of that interview on YouTube. Okay, excellent. Nyasha's saying the what can I do method is changing my mood tremendously. I'm currently diagnosed with high blood pressure. And every time I think about crying, I'm saying to myself now, that won't change it. I want to tell you something. They had me on high blood pressure pills. I'm no longer on them. All right. At the moment I realized that they had me on pills, I worked out what do I need to do to calm myself down so I don't need to be on them. Kimmy's asking, where was that fire in the building? I have no idea. I don't know whether somebody was cooking breakfast and something, set off a fire at the fire alarm. No idea. Quite honestly, when I walked past the fire marshal, I didn't ask. I just said, thank you for what you do, and went back. I needed to get back on with my life. Didn't really matter to me what caused it. What was important to me was that I wanted to get back to my life. Nyasha's saying, I'm finally taking my medications as prescribed. Not a bad idea. There's a reason why they need you to take those pills. They could save your life. And talking about that, I just want to make another mention before I get on to the Meghan and Harry thing. I just want to make another reminder about this vaccine thing. Do you all agree that it is your choice whether to have the vaccine or not? That is a personal choice. Do you all understand that taking the vaccine does not help you save other people's lives? It helps save your life. All right? It doesn't stop the spread of the virus. It doesn't stop you getting the virus. What it stops is how severe your illness will be. Makes sense. And so I think there's a lot of confusion about this, that people keep saying, oh, you're not going to take the vaccine? Well, you're putting my life at risk. That's not true. You're only putting your own life at risk. As far as I know, if anybody knows anything different to that, please let me know. But as far as I know, the reason to take the vaccine is so you will not end up in ICU or on a ventilator or dead. I think that's quite a good reason to take the vaccine myself. Yeah, Nyasha's saying she believes that the reason she's got high blood pressure is because she's carried the world on her shoulders for the past 34 years. And I'm calm now and relaxed. Yes, I think trying to be ruler of the universe is a very hard job. I think it's the reason I had high blood pressure as well, until I gave up being ruler of the universe and let the universe carry on. And, people wanted to be stupid. Go right ahead, I'm not going to try and fix you anymore. It's just like, go right ahead. So that's good. Kimmy's saying that they called her today to get her vaccine on Monday and the second in April. I will only get my first one in April, I believe. And the vaccine is so that you can't get it again. I don't believe that is altogether true. I believe you can get it again, but I could be wrong on that one, Kimmy. But it won't, you will have the antibodies in your system, so it won't be severe. Yes, Jeannie's saying that I'm surprised that a few of my acquaintances think that the vaccine will make them sick. It can do. If you are somebody that reacts to vaccines, my sister is one of those people who reacts to vaccines badly. There's something in the concoction. So she's terrified to have this thing. She's 86, and she is terrified. Is she 86? No, she's about to be 80. Sorry. And she's terrified of having the vaccine because she thinks it will make her sick. So to me, you've got to look at, is it her right not to have it if she doesn't want it? But it probably means she won't be able to do certain things where they're going to require, have you had a vaccine? You're going to have a passport that shows you've had a vaccine or something. It's less like you've got to look at both sides of this. So the other thing is, I believe some people are shopping around. Jeannie's saying that the Pfizer one is 94 to 96% effective. Yes, but quite honestly, would you take one that was 85% effective? If you could. I think that's the way you got to look at it and go, for the sake of 10%, do I care? Give me a vaccine. But I believe some people are actually saying, oh, I don't want to take this one because you've got to have 2 injections. I'll wait for the Johnson & Johnson one where I only have to have 1. It's like, yeah, and in the meantime, you can get COVID. Exactly. And Kimmy's saying she reacted to the shingles vaccine. You see, some people do react to certain vaccines. I can't say whether you're going to or not. But as far as I know, the majority of people, like 99.9% people, don't have a reaction. Jody, could you do the math on that for me? Could you find out what percentage of people are showing a reaction to the vaccine? Could you Google that for us? Yes, Jenny's saying we were a little ill one day after the second dose, and then we were fine again. Yes, And that's, you know why, Jeannie? What is a vaccine? They actually are giving you a little bit of COVID, right? That's what a vaccine is. They're actually going to give you a little bit so that your antibodies go, I don't like that. And they go and fight it and then build up their own immunity to it. So this to me is like, as far as I know, that's how vaccines work anyway. Which is why the very first people to get it, a lot of them volunteered to have their blood drawn so that their antibodies could be used to help others. Kim is saying they only get one kind of vaccine in their area. Okay, and that's at the moment. But I think you will find with the rollout that's happening, and they're saying that by May, everybody in the States is going to be able to have a vaccine if they want it, I think, if it's available. But they're trying to make sure that by Independence Day, you all those people who want to get vaccinated will be. All right, let's get on to the Meghan and Harry thing. So anybody got any views about it? Because what I want to do is see both sides of the story and, make sure that we have the feelings. Yes, Sandy's saying, I'm worried about the AstraZeneca one because I'm hearing that many countries are pulling it off the shelves. Yes, and do you want to remind us why? I remember reading that and I can't remember why. Why are they being pulled off the shelves for some reason? What is the reason? I did read that and I can't remember. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm not perfect. I'm not 100% sure that it was factual. It's something in my brain says there was a question mark about why they were pulling it off the shelves. So, acute reactions in 2%. Here we go. Of all the people who have had the vaccine, there have been acute reactions in 2%. But people have been allergic to it only 0.025%. Now, that's true of anything, right? Number one, could you have an acute reaction? There's a 2% chance that you could. By the way, driving your car, probably is, just as dangerous, if not more so. And is there some chance that you could have an allergic reaction? Yes, very slight. So make sure that the day that you have the vaccine, you are with people that are aware that you've had it. So if anything happens to you, they can, get an ambulance to you. Yes, Sandy is saying, they are saying that people are experiencing blood clots. That's right. I did read that. Canada is saying it's not proven, but still, yes, why would you take the risk is what people are saying, Sandy, I think. So, and by the way, if you happen to have bought shares in the AstraZeneca one, yikes. And that's, you got to think about that. It's like, how many people bought big shares in all these Pfizer and AstraZeneca and J&J because of the vaccines. And, something like this happens and now, boom. However, do I think it is possible that some people have had blood clots? Yes. The question is what percentage have had blood clots? I think that's what I would like to know. Because is there a risk? Of course, there's always a risk. There's a risk in breathing the air, people. And so you've got to weigh up, is being on a ventilator in ICU or dying a bigger risk? That's really what you're asking yourself. All right, here we go. So how many of you watched part or all of the interview with Meghan and Harry and had any feelings about it at all? Anybody? And if so, what were those feelings? Did you feel, that it was a good interview? Do you think Oprah did a good job? Do you think, that you related to what Meghan was saying? How did you feel about the way Harry reacted? What were your feelings about that? I'd like us to have an open conversation. All right, so Jeannie's saying, I was sorry to hear this interview when the prince is so ill in hospital. That actually was my next question. I can actually take a picture of it and show you. All right, when Prince Philip is in hospital at the moment. Not a good time. Also, Harry has been involved with mental health cases, so why couldn't he help Meghan? That's a conversation I want to have. Sandy's saying, I think I'm far more concerned because the other country is pulling off until further notice. Yeah, that's about the vaccine. Okay. Sandy didn't watch it. All right, so here are a couple of things. I totally agree with you, Jeannie. However, on the issue about Prince Philip being in hospital, just think for a second, all of you, all right? The timing sucked in terms of that. Like, hasn't the Queen got enough to be coping with at the moment? But if you think about it, how long do you think they had this planned? And how much money did they spend setting up the ads and everything? They've been working on this for months, all right? Way before Prince Philip ended up in hospital, I'm pretty sure. And so therefore, it's a bit like, stopping a moving train. It is not viable if you have got airtime booked, 6 months in advance for something, or 4 months in advance, or whatever. Moving that airtime is very difficult to do. By the way, all the money that they'd spent on the promotion, okay, would be totally wasted. They'd have to re-spend all that money. So there are two sides to that story. I don't think if they had known that Prince Philip was going to be in hospital and that ill and had to have a heart surgery, as he did, I believe he did, that they would have done it then. Quite honestly, I don't believe that. So to me, it's like, I see both sides of that one. How about the rest of you? Can you see the problem of actually stopping that moving train? Would Oprah have been available again? How long would they have to delay it for? 6 months? So from that perspective, I hope you can see both sides of that one. Yes, it sucked timing-wise, but it might have been out of their control to a fair amount. All right, and now Jeannie was also saying the point about Prince Harry. We know Prince Harry has been involved in mental health, so why couldn't he help Meghan? Yeah, and I've got some more to add to that one as well. Am I right? Some of you will know this, and if not, Jody will double check it. Isn't Meghan's mom a social worker? So to say she had no one, two things come to my mind. Number one, if your mom is a social worker, Mom, get over here. I need help. Yeah, Mom gets on a plane from LA and comes and, helps Meghan. The other thing is this, we're talking about Prince Harry. Seriously, how many phone calls does he have to make to get the top mental health people to help Meghan? Either in LA or fly them out from the UK if he wants to. You understand, this is not beyond his possibility. I'm not sure how much money he inherited from Princess Diana, but I think it was a fair amount of millions. And so to me, it's about, this man is not without connections. So for Meghan to say, I had nobody, that's what I thought, Jody. Jody's just confirming that Meghan's mom worked in the mental health sector from 2015 to 2018. So she has some knowledge. I'm not saying that she's a psychiatrist or can give medication or anything. What I'm saying is, for Meghan to say she had nobody was not necessarily true, but I can understand, having had mental health issue in my life, that's what it feels like. That's a different thing. You understand, the feeling that I don't have anybody and the actual not having anybody are not necessarily the same. Sandy's saying maybe family wouldn't have been the best option to help. Possible. That is possible. Jeannie's saying previous news has stated Meghan was very difficult with Brits demanding a lot. I don't know what to believe, but I think Harry and Meghan took advantage of their neighbor Oprah to look good. I don't think anybody, all due respects, Jeannie, I understand your thinking, but quite honestly, I don't think anybody takes advantage of Oprah. I mean, that's just my personal feeling. I think Oprah is a very savvy human being, and she would have seen it for what it was, but also she would have seen it for the ratings bonanza it was bound to be. And I think that is why she didn't do it on her own network. That's why she did it on a national network that was, could give it all the clout it needed, whatever. But that is just what I believe. It's not what I know. So I don't think, I have to say that, I don't think anybody takes advantage of Oprah necessarily. I think she's pretty savvy person. But I do believe that she's a friend and that she cared. I do believe that. We know she's a friend. Why? She was at the wedding. So from that perspective, all right, so Meghan's saying, Jeannie's saying that Meghan did see her mother. She had troubles with her father talking to the press. Yes, that happened, that's been happening all along from the wedding. So we know that she's estranged from her father. So I understand that one. And yes, I understand that it must have been upsetting that her father kept talking to the press. But, what I'm saying is, let's see both sides to the story. I don't believe the statement that she was alone. She might have felt alone, but again, why didn't Harry help her? That's a question. With his knowledge of having gone through mental health issues, why did she not get more help? I heard her say that the palace didn't help her. Well, I don't think it was, it would have been nice if the palace had helped her, but if they were already in the throes of getting out of palace life, then maybe legally the palace wasn't allowed to spend money in helping her. You know what I mean? There are very set rules about what the royal family can spend money on, and do that. So I don't know. I don't know enough about that side of it, but I've got a feeling that there's more to this story than we know. So let us get on to the other thing. How many of you believe that the royal family is racist? Thank you, Jody, for that balance as well. Jody's saying also, how much did she actually tell Harry at the time? Was she comfortable doing so? We don't know. We do know, though, Jody, that she said to him on that one thing where they had to go to Royal Albert Hall, that he said to her, stay home, you don't have to come with me, I'll do that gig on my own. And she said, I have to come with you because I don't know what I might do if I'm not with you. Now, that rang a bit strange to me as well, because I'm going, like, they don't have any friends that Harry could have said, listen, I need to go to the Royal Albert Hall, but Meghan's in a bit of trouble. Can you come and be with her until I can get back? So again, did she have to get all dressed up and go through the stress of doing that? I don't quite see that. It's like, I'm not 100% sure of that. But that's just my opinion, and we all are entitled to it, right? But a good point, how much did Harry actually know? And I have my sense is that, I can understand both sides of it. I can understand why she wouldn't want to tell him that and probably that she didn't know what was happening. Remember, she was, she'd given birth and she was pregnant again. Yeah. Jeannie's saying, sadly, I do believe someone said something about race, but this seemed to be before Archie's birth. Yes, it was. And they asked a question that everybody seems to be calling racist. And I want to talk about that because I'm not sure about that. And that is, I can remember in my upbringing, British upbringing, and Downton Abbey type British upbringing, I can remember my mum saying to me when I was actually dating somebody of color, my mum said, you want to make sure you don't marry that person. So I'm going, why? Well, if you have children, they could come up mottled. I remember that as clear as day because that was the thinking of the day. But is it also partially true? Is there a chance that if you are an interracial marriage, that your child may come out, you may be born with a darker skin or even a mottled skin, absolutely. And so there's part of me that goes, was that question necessarily racist, or was it out of interest? Do we know? Can you imagine somebody sitting there and saying, by the way, with Harry's, ginger hair and with your, background, any idea what your children will look like? I think that would not necessarily be racist. And while you guys are reacting to that, Sandy's saying about Meghan going out to the Royal Albert Hall, she's saying, on the other hand, it might have been good for her to get out. Yes, it's possible, but it might also have been bad for her. And then Sandy is saying about the comment about the color. She's saying, you just can't say things like that anymore. Well, my question is this. Is it a valid question to ask? Not because I want to be racist, but just because I'm interested. It's like saying, if I cross-pollinate two roses, which color will be dominant? By the way, I don't think anybody has a right answer for that either, because until a baby is born, you won't know. But, to me, I just got to ask that question, can you see that it might not have been racist in its asking? It might have been seeking after knowledge rather than racist. And could it have been said privately, just sort of, without any intent of malice at all? That's why I've got to ask myself. Do I think that the royal family is racist? No, I got to tell you, I really, I think the whole world is racist to some degree, right? It's just a level of degree. And let's be honest, I'm not perfect myself. I've got a son who's from Kenya, for goodness sake, but I ask him constantly. I have to tell you this. I am constantly asking him, do you consider me racist? And he laughs at me and he goes, why are you even asking me that? Have you seen the color of my skin? And I go, that's the whole point. Because I have stood in a room and somebody said to me, where's Dougie? And I said, you'll see him over there. He's the deeply suntanned one. And I go, Dougie, I've always said it like that. And I want to know, is that racist? And he said, Sal, the reason you say it like that, it's the fastest way to find me. And it's pretty obvious it's me. I go, yep. And he goes, I don't see that as racist. I see that as informational. And so, I said, well, but you're the only one I care about, as long as you don't find it racist. Yes. And then Jeannie's saying, here's the cancel culture again. If you say something, you may be called a racist. Yes. How many of you saw this whole thing about Piers Morgan, being walking off the set of Good Morning Britain and then being fired or whatever? Did he have the right to voice his opinion of Meghan Markle? Did he have that right under the free speech? Even if we didn't like it, did he have the right? That's the question. And so, you look at it and you go, these are all learning moments for us all. I've always said to you, if you have a mental health issue, make sure you only discuss it with safe people. All right? Why? Because people will use it against you if they can. That's the scary part. Yeah. And so, but I do believe we need to talk about mental health issues more, because we've got to drop this stereotype that, just because you've got a mental health issue, that you're not a decent person or whatever. Does it cloud your thinking? You bet it does. I've been there. I know it does. Nyasha's saying, my question is, why did they have to do the interview on public television? I didn't watch it for that very reason. To me, it needed to be sought in a more private and counseling manner. Well, I think there's a lot of history to that, Nyasha. If you remember, the whole reason that Harry's mum died was because of pressure from the press. All right? The paparazzi were chasing her limo. It just so happened her limo driver was drunk, but Harry lost his mother because of press coverage, and for her not being able to get the truth out of what was happening to her. So I think there is a lot of history for the family, for Harry and Meghan, about the damage that the press can do. And yes, I am pretty sure, Nyasha, that he did know that going public would cause even bigger rifts between him and his family, in much as Buckingham Palace family, the institution. But, he's not a stupid man. He knew the risk he was taking there and did it willingly, in my view. All right? And Jeannie's saying Piers Morgan walked off. That is unprofessional. But he has a right to his opinion. Yeah, I'm glad you can see that. And so you look at it and go, there are lots of little layers to this onion. Do you think overall that Harry and Meghan have come out with better understand? Do you feel that you understand their point of view better? Did they achieve that? Or in seeing or hearing about the interview, do you feel you have a different view because of the interview? What you feeling? Are you glad they did the interview, or would you rather that they hadn't? Were you glad to hear their side of the story, even if it didn't make sense in some places? Were you sad to hear that, there was a time there where Prince Charles didn't talk to Harry because of the rift? I was sad to hear that, but not surprised. And I'm pretty certain that everybody wants to know, who was it who made that statement about the color of the skin? I wonder if it'll ever be divulged as to who that was that made that statement. And I personally would love to find out what was the context of the question, rightly or wrongly. I agree with you, Sandy, that we basically should not be asking that sort of question anymore. But can I see I have to think about, would I ask Doug that question? If he were about to, the reason I say that is Doug's girlfriend at the moment was married to a Kenyan, and she has a son that is Black. And so you look at it and you go, isn't it amazing that Archie was white and looks like he's got Prince Harry's hair as well? So, it could have gone either way. And to me, quite honestly, it wasn't an unfair question. Would it make a difference? I think that's what they got confused. Would it make a difference as to how much they loved him? I don't think so. I think they wanted to know, do we have any idea? When you take somebody of Harry's coloring and I just, to me, it's like academic almost. But I'm certain a lot of you don't see it that way either. I would like to believe that the interview had us all talking a bit more about mental health. Do you believe that because of the interview, that it will make talking about mental health easier for some families? Because if so, if you believe that after that interview, a lot more families talked about what it's like to have mental health and what it's like to have postpartum, do you think that that would be a benefit? And if you do, then was it worth the time? I personally think that as there are always two sides to any story, and the truth lies somewhere in the middle of that. Do you understand that? There are always two sides to a story. If you hear this person's version, it is human nature that it will favor them. If you hear this person's version, it is human nature that it will be spun in a way that favors them. So we know that of the two stories, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. All right? And it'll have a bit of this and a bit of this. But as far as I know, human nature says that the truth, which is why, if you think about it, that's why we go to court, all right? That's why we go to court, to sort out the difference between your version and somebody else's. All right? How many of you have watched Judge Judy or something like that? While I'm waiting for that answer, let me read some comments here. Jeannie's saying, washing your dirty laundry in public is not a great thing. I am sorry for the estrangement between Harry and his brother. Yes, and his father, I think, to some degree. Sandy's saying, I don't watch, but from everything I've heard, I feel they needed or felt they needed to get this story out there. Yes, that's my belief as well. Personally, I feel let them live their life. I feel that Harry experienced a great loss when Diana died and he was protecting his family. I believe that totally. He wasn't in line for the throne, so he should have been able to do as he pleases to keep his loved ones safe. I am totally believe that's why he split away from the royal family. To him, it was like, I don't want a repeat of what happened to my mother. I'm getting out of here. And I'm taking my wife and my unborn child with me. We're getting out of here. And by the way, they would have stayed in Canada, right? Why did they move to LA? Because Canada said, we're glad to have you, but we're not going to pay for your security. And that's why they went to LA. And then the US said, we're not going to pay for your security. And, so things, I think they've had a lot. I'd like to think that we here at Dear Mama Sal would send our thoughts and prayers to both of them and to the royal family in general. I am certain there's a lot of anger in the royal family at the moment. I'm still incensed that there's going to be an investigation about how Meghan treated her staff, and she might not have been pleasant, for all I know. I wasn't there. But they didn't do an investigation of Prince Andrew when he was associated with Epstein. I mean, to me, it's like, hello, where's that fair? But that's my feeling. Yes, and Sandy's saying you become very protective when you become parents. I think you become very protective when your mother was, died because of the press. And Sandy's saying, yes, apparently the royal family told everyone where they were, and without security detail, they were in danger. Well, they, again, Sandy, I'm pretty sure that when Harry learned that he would lose his title and the benefits, he knew that he would be without security. All right? Which is maybe why he decided to move to Canada, because he thought, Canada would provide security. I don't know. Because Canada was within the Commonwealth, which kept him, he would, be more favored there. But, I don't really know. All I know is I am so sad for them and for the royal family, because it must be very difficult. Exactly, Sandy's saying, and when the friend, I'm trying to remember who that was, Jay-Z or somebody, right? When a friend offered them a home and security detail in the US, they took it. I can understand that. Yes, you're saying this interview may have opened up deep wounds, hurt feelings, which may already have been healing. That's possible, but obviously it needed to happen. Yes, and Sandy's saying maybe they thought they could blend in Canada. I think Canada would have loved to have had them. As I think, I quite honestly, there's part of me that goes, I think Canada would have adopted them as their, as their own little family. But the Canadian system said but we're not going to pay for your protection. You are no longer royal. In terms of your need for protection. And, I think the Canadian taxpayer would, was angry at the thought that they might have to pay for it. Because it's not cheap, So, but you look at it all, and just what I'm trying to do here is to make sure that we see both sides, all right? I don't believe they planned this broadcast to happen at the time when Prince Philip was in hospital. Do you? Really, when you think about it? Or was it unfortunate that all the timing just, when life got in the way? And Prince Philip went into hospital and was still there. He left hospital and quite honestly would have been out of hospital, but what happened? He ended up back in hospital. So I don't think that was planned at all. I think it was unfortunate. Could they have moved it? Yes and no. I've been in the media enough in my life to know moving a huge ratings story like that is not easy. All right? Is Canada under the rule of the Queen? I'm trying to remember the truth of that. There's part of me that goes yes and no. Hang on a second. I'm just going to make sure. All right, I'm going to read you the official version of that because I want to make sure I get the wording right. Okay. The monarchy of Canada is the core of Canada's constitutional federal structure. In other words, we have the Westminster style of parliamentary democracy. Although the person of sovereign, that's the Queen, is shared with 15 other independent countries within the Commonwealth of Nations, each country's monarch is separate and legally distinct. As a result, the current monarch is officially titled Queen of Canada, and in this capacity, her consort and other members of the Canadian royal family undertake public and private functions. Okay? So, but as far as I know, it's a sort of yes, but situation. Canada, yeah, I don't think so either. There's something about, we are still part of the Commonwealth, but we're not governed by the Queen. Would that be fair? I don't know how better to word that. Is Canada still part of the Commonwealth? Yes. But are we ruled by the Queen? No. As far as I know. However, we do have a lieutenant governor rather, appointed by the Queen. So we do have somebody who represents the Queen in major decisions. Now, my experience, though, has been that certain laws still have to be passed to them. I'll get back to you on that one after Jodi's finished Googling it for me and see what she comes up with. I think it's, in other words, I think she's a figurehead more than rules the country. I don't know how to word that better. Because we're still part of the Commonwealth. By the way, did you know? Okay, here we go. Thanks, Jodi. Jodi says, though Canada is an independent country, Britain's Queen Elizabeth remains the nation's head of state. That's right, she's still the figurehead. The Queen does not play an active role in Canadian politics, and her powers are mostly symbolic. Yes, she's symbolic, yeah. So, but because we're part of the Commonwealth. Now, did you know, and I'm pretty certain, my viewers are pretty savvy, but did you know that there, although the Commonwealth, has some pretty negative ideas around it, did you know that countries are trying to get into the Commonwealth? That the Commonwealth is expanding. It's no longer to do with the colonization that Britain did. It's now about, countries wanting to be part of that global entity that is called the British Commonwealth. And it's interesting that countries are trying to get into it now. I thought that was pretty good. Thanks for your help there, Jodi. I knew you were Googling. I was trying, as you know, stalling long enough for you to get the facts out there. So, that's why I love doing the broadcast, right? We all learn. And that's why I was struggling with the right wording, because I knew that the Queen didn't get to decide things in Canada's politics, but she doesn't decide things in UK politics either, right? You do know that. She's not a political entity. She's not, by virtue of the position, she's not allowed to be political. No, don't worry, Jodi. Jodi's apologizing that it took too long. And Kimmy's saying it's still confusing. Yes, it is, isn't it? But, if you think about it, the Queen never comments on politics. None of the royal family do, right? The politicians will go to the Queen and tell her, this is what's happening and, this is what's going on in your country. In other words, it's two separate bodies, right? It's the royal family who are the figureheads and who, who, let's be honest, are a huge moneymaker for the UK. in terms of tourism and everything. Sandy's saying she thinks that she's smart in that regard. Yes, because her job is not to control the politics. By the way, you will never hear any of the royal family make a comment about anybody's politics. All right? Because that's never, it's not something they discuss. Why? Because the moment that you do, you will make friends and enemies, right? However, that is part of the argument that I heard underlying some of what Meghan and Harry were talking about, which is the whole British culture is we don't talk about things like that. And because we don't talk about things like that openly, then it all gets swept under the rug and people pretend it's not there. I personally would rather hear an opinion. Kimmy's saying that's why Harry and Meghan don't want to stay in Canada, because it is somewhat connected to the Queen. I don't believe that is true, Kimmy. I believe the reason they left Canada had absolutely 100% to do with security. That somebody offered them a house in California and a security detail to go with it. I think, yes, I agree with Sandy. From what we know, they really wanted to stay in Canada, but they wanted to be secure, and Canada would not give them free security. Because the Canadian public wouldn't agree to it. That's what I understand. And then I'm trying to remember, Jody, sorry to ask you again, but could you just Google that for me and find out who is it? Was it Jay-Z or somebody or that offered them the house? Yes, they spent a lot of time in Canada before getting married, and the Canadians loved them to bits. Because they were so human in their view. They loved them as royals because they were just so natural and normal. And yet they're not natural or normal. We know that. I mean, one is a prince and the other is a movie TV star. So you look at it and go, yeah, there's nothing normal about that. Sandy's saying some movie producer. Yeah, I'm certain Jodie's on it. She's so good at that. So you look at it and you go, I think they have the right to share their side of it, even if it didn't make total sense. Tyler Perry, thank you. I thought it was an actor. Yeah, and thank you. I appreciate that. So Tyler Perry offered his house and the security detail. How about that? Yes. Sandy's saying, Canada has always loved Harry and William, as they loved their mother. Yeah, we absolutely, no doubt about it. I want to tell you, when Diana died, I think Canada, and then the world felt it, but there was something that happened in Canada, and it was just not the same after that. And Kimmy's saying politics and religion are two things that get people into fights. Well, they don't have to. Kimmy, this is the interesting thing. They don't have to get people into fights, but boy, if you can't talk about both sides, if you can't hear both sides, if you can't debate, then yes, it happens. But I strongly believe that everybody has the right to disagree. It's how you do it that makes the difference. And I feel very strongly about the fact that, I am entitled to have different views than somebody else. And I'm also entitled to talk about them. And the same way as I am a great believer that as somebody who has a platform with viewers, that I have an obligation in some ways to talk about my views and what makes me who I am. Not that I'm right, but it's all part of who I am as a human. And one of the things I've always appreciated so much with Jeannie is that, she can disagree with me 100% politically, but she's still a viewer. Why? Right? Because we know it's so important to have both sides. And Jeannie's reminding us that Tyler Perry is both an actor, a director, a producer, and a screenwriter. He's a busy lad, isn't he? And so you look at it and go, what an incredible gift to be able to say, I've got enough money, personally, I have enough money to give you my house and a security detail. Now, my question is, doesn't Prince Harry have enough money to do that? Right? That's what I'm thinking about. Kimmy's saying, why is it so bad that they left the royals and went out on their own? Yes, I think, because it was seen as, I believe, Kimmy, it depends who you talk to, right? Because like everything, it has two sides. But I believe for a lot of the British people, it was seen as a lack of responsibility. We've paid all this money to have you educated and to be a royal. All right, we've paid all the bills for you, Prince Harry. And now your job as a royal is to go and open up the local school, or go to an event and be the figurehead for certain charities, and go to the Royal Albert Hall and attend. That's your job. That's what you get paid to do. And so you can't just turn around and go, up yours, Britain, I'm out of here because I don't like what the press is saying about me. That was the feeling in Britain. Oh, that's interesting. Sandy's saying that from what they understand, they had stayed in one of Tyler Perry's houses before. So they had history there. That's excellent. Interesting conversation there, right? By the way, when we have these interesting conversations, is it necessary that we come to a conclusion? And how many of you, honestly, feel that by talking about it today, did you learn anything new? Do you feel in any way better informed than you were 2 hours ago? That's what I'd like to know. I'm not asking anybody to change their view. What I'm asking is, because we talked about it, did you learn anything? Do you feel just a modicum of extra knowledge from having the discussion? Even though it felt uncomfortable. And so when you look at coping with our feelings, right? Oh, thanks, Jeannie. Jeannie's saying that Prince Harry got 10 million from his mother. Now, that's probably very well invested, so he's not without a few bob here. Right, Jody's saying no conclusion necessary, right? Conversation is stimulating and enlightening. You see, to me, I learned something by having the conversation. I hope you did. And I don't have to have the perfect answer. I just want to keep learning more. All right? I just want to keep learning more. I want to hear what you felt about it, because you have a good reason for feeling the way you did. Maybe your information is better than mine, which is why I ask you. How many of you feel you got a better idea of why they left Canada? All right? And it wasn't about the Queen. They left Canada for a totally different reason. And that's why, and for those of you, of my viewers, who know about mental health, for those of you who've been through a mental health issue, can you remember being in that fog to that degree that you didn't even really, what you thought was true wasn't really true? All right? I've had that. And it wasn't that I was lying, it was my perception of what was true was off. because I was ill. My perception, I wasn't seeing it clearly. I wasn't seeing both sides. And so we here at DearMamaSal will continue to make broadcasts that are a little bit uncomfortable when necessary. Right. Jody's saying, I can totally relate to that, right? And then Sandy's saying, yes, you always feel very alone. I can remember that. I can remember that absolutely. And I wasn't. I just had to reach out and tell people I needed help. And they would have come running. But, I was so embarrassed that I was struggling. And I can remember even going to my doctor, and my doctor gave me, I went to an old doctor that I used to have, because the doctor I was trying to deal with just, basically patted me on the head and told me to take a good walk and I'd feel better. And I knew I was way past that. And I went back to a doctor who had treated me once before when I had an issue. And I said to him, you need to take me back, please, because I need some help. And he gave me hell. I can remember it so well. He gave me hell because I'd been dealing with a local doctor near where I lived. And now that I was in serious trouble, I came back to him. And he reamed me a new one. I don't mind telling you. And I looked at him. Luckily, I had this much of my mind left. And I looked at him and I said, Mark, I need you to do me a really big favor right now. I need you to decide whether you want to carry on beating me over the head, because the Canadian medical system allows me to go to a walk-in clinic around the corner. And that's more convenient for me and costs me less in gas money. Whether you want to carry on having that fight with me when I am in this state, or do you want to think about your Hippocratic oaths and do what you can to help me? Because I am here not because I mean to insult you in any way. I'm here because I am scared right now, and I need your help. And I remember that feeling so well. But luckily, I had enough of my brain to fight for my right to be treated that way. And that is part of today's broadcast, isn't it? It's about, do you have the right to stand up, to make sure you get treated fairly? Should I, at my age, be asked to walk all those different things that I bought in that journey across that car park, up through the elevators, and huck it all the way down to my apartment? No, that's not right. That's not what I pay for. I needed to remind them. And Jeannie's saying, thanks for this broadcast and your understanding that we can disagree, but we can be civil and polite to one another. Most of the time, Jeannie. I'm certain I'm not perfect in that, but I do try. But, it's like, people, we got to keep talking. If we don't talk about these things, and it's okay if you don't agree with me, it's like, let's keep talking about them. Because when we do, we all learn something. And coping with our feelings, it's okay for them to be uncomfortable every now and then. That's how we sort out, that's how we learn things. By the way, a big round of applause to Jody. She took another major step forward in her health issues. She had a really difficult test done this week that was extremely difficult for her, because in order to do it, she was not allowed to be on any pain medication. And boy, she needs her pain medication. And so the good news is she got through it. And well done, Jody. I'm so proud of you. We'll see you tonight, everybody. For those of you who wish to be with us, we'll be talking about coping with life, where you get, I took some pictures of what's happening in the my home, so that you can see it is coming along. It actually took a step backward in some ways, but it's coming along quite nicely. And I thought I'd show you how the wall-to-wall shower is shaping up at the moment. I love you dearly, and I thank you for being here. And I thank you for all that you do to talk about things and help other people understand. Every week we have different topics, because every week life brings us different topics. This is DearMamaSal saying, love you dearly. Look after one another. But most of all, please, 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 look after yourself. Make sure you stand up for your rights in things. Make sure you don't hang on to anger and resentment and jealousy and all those things. You can have a split second. That's called being human. But move on and get on with your life. Let other people live with theirs. This is DearMamaSal saying, thanks for being here, guys. Bye-bye for now.